What if the most advanced civilization in history vanished in a single day? Not a myth, a warning. Written down 2,400 years ago, our only source is the philosopher Plato. He spoke of a history passed to him through generations, a story originating from the sacred records of Egyptian priests. Their records told of an island empire of unrivaled power, a nation whose dominion stretched across the sea. Plato claimed its size was immense, larger than what the ancient Greeks knew as North Africa and Asia Minor combined. For centuries, it held mastery over the earth and sea. And then, it was gone. In what Plato called a single day and night of misfortune, the island and its people disappeared into the depths of the sea. Plato gave us a blueprint. He gave us a location, just beyond the Pillars of Hercules. For 2 millennia, that blueprint has fueled a relentless search. But if the story is real, where is the proof? Our hunt begins in the heart of the Aegean Sea, at the site of one of the most violent cataclysms in human history. Here lies our first suspect, the volcanic island of Santorini. Around 1600 BC, this island, then known as Thera, was home to the Minoans, a sophisticated naval power whose art and architecture dominated the region. Then, in a matter of days, it was all erased. The volcano at the island's heart erupted with the force of millions of atomic bombs, blowing the island apart and triggering a tsunami that devastated coastlines for hundreds of miles, a civilization erased by fire and water. The parallels to Plato's account are chilling. When archaeologists uncovered the ruins of the Minoan city of Akrotiri, preserved in ash like a prehistoric Pompeii, they found evidence of a circular island. Plato's Atlantis was famously described as a city of concentric rings of land and water. The pieces seem to fit perfectly. A lost naval power, a circular city, a cataclysmic end. Had the mystery been solved all along? But there's a fatal flaw in the theory, a detail that simply cannot be ignored. Plato was meticulous, stating that Atlantis fell 9,000 years before his time. The destruction of Santorini, as violent as it was, happened 7,000 years too late. Verdict: a stunning catastrophe. But it was not Atlantis. With the Mediterranean lead turning cold, the hunt for Atlantis crossed the Atlantic. In the 1960s, off the coast of the Bahamas, pilots reported seeing a strange, rectangular structure just beneath the waves. Divers went to investigate, and what they found would ignite a firestorm of speculation. A half-mile stretch of massive, perfectly aligned limestone blocks. It became known as the Bimini Road. It didn't look natural. It looked like the foundation of a massive wall, a man-made harbor from an impossible time. For believers, this was it, the first physical proof of a lost world on America's doorstep. But could it truly be a relic of Atlantis? The scientific community descended on the site. Geologists took samples, studied the formations, and delivered a sobering verdict. The structure was made of natural beach rock, a type of stone that forms when sand and sediment cement together in the intertidal zone. The perfect, block-like fractures, a natural and surprisingly common result of geological pressure and erosion. Verdict: a captivating illusion. The search continued. The hunt on land and sea had failed. But the next clue would come from a place no one expected: from space. Hidden in plain sight in the middle of the vast Sahara Desert is a geological feature so strange, so perfect, it defies belief. The Rishat structure, better known as the Eye of the Sahara. For decades, its origin was a mystery. It is a near-perfect set of concentric rings, 25 miles wide, visible only from the sky. When satellite images were laid over Plato's detailed description of Atlantis' capital city, a central island surrounded by alternating rings of water and land, the resemblance was uncanny, more perfect than any other site on Earth. This couldn't be a coincidence. The layout matched the ancient blueprint with breathtaking precision. If this wasn't a city, What could possibly create such a formation? The answer, once again, came from geology. It's a natural geological dome that has eroded over millions of years, and it holds the final, fatal flaw. It was never an island, and it holds no trace of the superpower Plato described. Verdict: a geological marvel. But not Atlantis. The locations don't fit. The timelines are skewed. For centuries, we've searched for a physical place, a single spot on a map. What if Atlantis isn't a place at all, but a memory? To understand, we must turn back the clock not 2,000, but nearly 12,000 years, to the end of the last ice age. At this time, a third of the Earth's surface was covered in colossal sheets of ice. Then the planet began to warm, and the world faced a cataclysm of unimaginable scale. For generations, humanity witnessed the Great Melt. The ice dams holding back continent-sized lakes burst, unleashing biblical floods, and the sea itself began to rise, not by inches, but by feet. Year after year, the oceans crept inland, swallowing coastlines, drowning entire ecosystems, and forcing our ancestors into a desperate retreat. This wasn't a myth. It was a geological reality. We now know that vast, inhabited land masses, like Doggerland in the North Sea or the Sunda Shelf in Southeast Asia, were consumed by the rising tide. Thousands of settlements, entire coastal civilizations vanished beneath the waves. The story Plato told wasn't the history of one city. It was the collective, traumatized memory of all of them. The story survived for 9,000 years, passed down through generations, not as a treasure map, but as a warning. A warning that any civilization, no matter how advanced, can be erased by the power of its own planet. A warning of fire and flood. A warning about the consequences of a changing world. The question isn't whether Atlantis was real. The question is, are we listening?